Hey Detectorists, welcome to the Metal Detecting Show, episode number 1. My name is Kieran, and this week, because it's just the beginning of the podcast, we have decided to go with a beginner episode, looking at selecting your first detector and what to consider. We also chat about discrimination and the global news of the day. So let's get to it. Hey everybody, my name is Kieran and welcome to the Metal Detecting Show episode 1. This week I want to talk to you about the top 5 beginner metal detectors on the market today. But the first thing to consider when purchasing your first detector is what you intend to look for, and as a quick tip to determine this, look at a map of your locality. For example, if you live near a beach, you will most likely be hunting for modern coinage and jewellery, and you want a detector that performs well in salt water with good discrimination. If you're in the Midlands, for example, somewhere that is nowhere near a saltwater beach, but near a river maybe, then you may want to pick up a waterproof detector that is more suited to relic hunting. The point is to look at where you're most likely to be hunting and select a detector suitable to what you are hunting and to what terrain you're hunting on. So to start, I will go through my top 5 beginner detectors and try to cover what they are best suited for. First, I want to outline the criteria I have used to select these detectors. These are your first detectors and as such should be reasonably priced. For me that is less than $400, €350 or £300 and of good quality and functionality, more than a toy to ensure a good beginner experience. I won't drill down into the feature set of each, I'll allow Google to do that for you, but this should help you narrow down your choices. Starting at number 5 on the list. At $250, the Fisher F22 has to start the list. It has all the basic features that a beginner would need, being waterproof with 4 simple modes for hunting: coin, jewellery, artifact or custom, and a great beginner machine for all, but keep it off the wet sand. Coming in at number 4, my first detector was a Bounty Hunter Quick Draw 2, so I have no problem recommending the Bounty Hunter Platinum. At approximately $300, this lightweight, ready-to-go, uncomplicated detector is a great first detector for the kids, or simply as a backup detector for you. At number 3, again from the company that brought metal detecting to the mainstream and invented the metal detector as we know it today, at about $300 you will be happy with the Fisher F4. Some great discrimination options, but can be a tad uncomfortable. At number 2, Minelab Xterra 305. Approximately £300, a good all-rounder with lots of Minelab accessories available to enhance your detecting experience and can detect on wet sand. Just make sure to adjust your sensitivity. And finally, in at number 1, and as I am a total Minelab fanboy, it kills me to say this, but the Garrett Ace 300 is top of the list. This is the updated version of the Ace 250. And it has to be the best all-round beginner machine on the market today. Guaranteed a great experience. Its only downfall is that it struggles on wet sand and salt water. So remember to consider your hunting locale before making your purchase. Listen, this list is by no means exhaustive, and in fact, any of the top 3 could be number 1 on our list today. It's all down to where you hunt. After the break, let's review the detecting news of the day. Okay guys, some news this week from the Blackpool Gazette. Detectorist Nigel Virgin, 74, found what seems to be a large rusty sword. Nigel says the storms have created some deep dips in the sand and he got a signal that turned out to be a 1923 sixpence. Nigel then goes on to say, I always checked the hole afterwards and there was another signal, and when I dug it, a part of a wooden handle poked out. Nigel goes on to speculate that the sword may be 100 years old and possibly off a pantomime on the pier. Now, go ahead and read the article guys, the link will be in the show notes. There are 2 takeaways from this simple story. 1. The best time to hit a beach is directly after a storm because all the fluffy golden sand is removed, exposing the deeper, more aged sand where all the goodies lie. And 2. Always check your hole twice. It goes without saying, I don't know how many times I had a second signal in a hole only to find a pocket spill, or in most cases, a second pull tab. That's the news for this week, guys. Hopefully next week we will have a more extensive report from the world of metal detecting. Okay, time for a tech timeout. This week I planned to talk about discrimination. I thought discrimination would be a nice, easy topic for us to discuss on the very first episode of the podcast. However, in doing my research for it, I discovered that discrimination is a little bit more complicated than I thought at first. So let's get started here with it. Bear with me because it's quite complicated, and don't forget to check out the show notes where everything I discuss here is captured and you can read it yourself after the fact. Well, what is discrimination? Well, I like to think of discrimination as a filter on the detector. That is, it filters out certain undesirable metals that respond at certain conductivity, resistivity and permeability, and detecting frequency, for example. Most detectors, when operated at low discrimination, will filter out iron of a certain size and depth. And when you increase your discrimination, consider that you're increasing the range of your filter and will block out more targets. And most often, if your discrimination is set too high, you will discriminate some good targets. Most detector brands have some proprietary technology for discrimination, and with any new detector, the first step is to learn how its discrimination works and how to adjust according to what you are searching for. So to understand discrimination, we need to break it down into its 4 determining factors. Starting with conductivity. Conductivity is a measure of how easily the detecting coil's magnetic field induces an electromagnetic field around a metal object. For example, silver, copper and gold would have high conductivity, where foil would be at the opposite end of the spectrum with a low conductivity. Now, resistivity is essentially the opposite of conductivity. A metal with high resistivity will impede the flow of the induced electromagnetic field in our detecting coil, or more simply, will oppose the flow of electric current. A metal with low resistivity allows the movement of the electrical charge, or in our case, allows the movement of the induced electromagnetic field more easily. The standard anecdote when considering resistivity is to consider a water pipe, and the inner diameter of the water pipe relates to the reciprocal of the resistivity. So the larger the inner of the pipe, the lower the resistivity. The lower the resistivity, the more water we can push through the pipe at a constant pressure, which would be current in this case. Permeability, right? So onto permeability. Permeability in a metal is essentially how easily a metal can be magnetized or support magnetic field development. Iron, for example, has the highest relative permeability of 200,000 or 2.5 by 10 to the minus 1 henries, and because of this, iron is very easily to discriminate out. So how do they all relate to each other? Well, all metals have conductivity, resistivity, and permeability, and this is where frequency comes in. So as you know, most detectors operate across a range of frequencies, normally in the range of very low frequencies, of 1 to 5 kilohertz to a top of the range of 100 kilohertz, where the CTX 3030, for example, would operate. Frequency needs a tech timeout of its own, but putting it simply, frequency affects the depth of penetration of a metal object. I'm not talking about depth of detection here, but depth of penetration, or how far the magnetic field will penetrate the skin of the metal object. If the frequency is high, it will not penetrate as much as if the frequency is low. But if you increase the frequency, the relative resistance of the surface of the object will also increase. Now, adding, if the conductivity is high, it would not penetrate beyond the skin of the metal object. If the permeability is high, the depth of penetration is also low. Now throw in the aspect of the object, for example how it sits in the ground, which brings in the cross-sectional area of the object, which will affect all of above. So when we are adjusting discrimination, we are adjusting how the detector creates a baseline of conductivity, resistivity and permeability and frequency, all affecting the depth of electromagnetic penetration on the surface of the object and the size of the object to be detected. So this is why having discrimination set too high can in fact knock out gold on high frequencies, as high frequencies can increase the surface resistivity of an object, which could push the object below the discrimination baseline. This is also why when you increase discrimination you lose small silver while keeping large silver, as a small silver object may not have the cross-sectional profile to push it over the discrimination baseline to be detected. Each manufacturing brand of detector handles how they create this baseline differently. So essentially discrimination is a tightrope to be walked carefully, and my rule of thumb is starting as a beginner either in detecting or with a new brand of detector. Dig everything first, and as you learn your detector, slowly increase your discrimination till you are only discriminating out iron. This is a good place to be. So essentially discrimination is a tightrope to be walked carefully, and my rule of thumb, starting out as a beginner either in detecting or with a brand new detector, dig everything, and as you learn your detector, slowly increase your discrimination till you are only discriminating out iron. That is a good place to be, and as you gain more and more experience, you can adjust your discrimination to suit specific targets you are searching for, like large gold for example. That is what allows super experienced detectorists to go to a hunted out site and still find valuable artifacts and coins. So get familiar with the metal conductivity scale. There's an example on the Metal Detecting Show website. And remember not to overuse discrimination unless you know specifically what you're hunting for. Okay, that's it guys. I hope you learned an awful lot from this tech timeout. I know I did. In researching discrimination, I learned an awful lot for myself. And as you know, as I learn, you guys will learn. Okay, a nice short and sweet episode. As we progress our episodes, we will get more substantial with detail and extensive interviews with prominent detectorists. If you would like to be interviewed, just pop me an email. Okay, that's it. I hope you'd like the first episode of the Metal Detecting Show podcast. Follow us on Twitter at DetectingDe or Instagram at the Metal Detecting Podcast. If you want to contribute or have suggestions for topics to cover, pop us an email to Kieran, that's CIARAN, at themetaldetectingshow.com. Check out our Patreon page if you want to help the podcast stay alive or just want to buy me a coffee. Just search for the Metal Detecting Show. Once again, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will chat to you again next week. Happy hunting.